Hey everyone, this is Nick and welcome to the Linux and Open Source News Show. This week we've got some more news about the Cosmic Desktop. Not only why they created it and how, but also some interesting things that were given to a bunch of us creators in a virtual conference press meetup thingy. We also have the Linux market share climbing again and now reaching its highest number ever. And we also have a new study pointing out that macOS is probably the least well-secured operating system out there, where Linux is the most secure, or at least the best configured. So anyway, let's get started with the video. But wait, isn't there a sponsor here? Well, no, not for the beginning of the video anyway, so I'll just take this opportunity to remind you that you can support the channel. There are links in the show notes, description, whatever, with plenty of perks that you can get from €1 or $1 per month. So check that out. So, the System76 team had an interesting blog post about their upcoming Cosmic Desktop. They explained not only why they built it, but also the technological choices. On top of that, a lot of creators and myself were invited to a virtual press event where they showcased the current version, the current alpha version of Cosmic, and explained a bunch of stuff, and we'll talk about that in this segment as well. So first, why did they build Cosmic? And obviously, it was from the fact that extensions are just not a super solid base to build your own experience. If you're like Ubuntu, you only have a dock and 2 other extensions, it is not that hard to maintain them with every new GNOME version, but when you do what PopOS does, which is basically completely redo an entire shell on top of GNOME, then that was way too hard to maintain. They also considered forking GNOME, but that was apparently coming with a lot of legacy code, and so they decided to create their own thing. They went with Rust as the language, apparently because it's easier to write memory-safe code, and because the language itself is legible and stable, although there were basically no real complete toolkits they could use to build applications and programs, so they had to really heavily contribute to Iced, which is the library that they went with, and also they had to create their own library called libcosmic. And now for the information you will not find in the blog post. The first thing will be about how Cosmic will theme applications. You will get a toggle to decide if you want to theme GTK apps or not. Only the colors, as far as I know, will be changed in GTK apps if you decide to go with that. KDE apps will not pick up the colors that you defined for now, but this is something they want to work on for maybe the next alpha or a future release. And since I'm talking about colors, yes, that's what you can change in Cosmic. As far as I could see, and as far as my testing goes, there are no other themes for Cosmic. It's just colors and changing the shape of the buttons. You can go with rounded, square roundish, and square completely square for every button, window shape and corner, etc. It all applies to every single part of the Cosmic interface. And then it's the colors. You can pick the ones you want. Some colors can be derived to be automatically contrasted and look nice, but generally you're just going to change the colors, and these colors will apply to stuff like Firefox, to GTK apps, and other things, but for now, not to KDE applications. They also shared a list of stuff that they want to work on in the future. That includes some sort of translucency with a frosted glass effect on the interface, probably optional. They're gonna work on variable refresh rate, which is not supported in the first alpha. They're gonna work on accessibility, because this also isn't supported in the first alpha. They have a bunch of settings pages that don't exist yet. They've got missing features, notably on the file manager. They don't have an initial setup, so you have to set up the time manually, for example. And HDR is not supported yet. They are contributing to that with the KDE team that is working on that, but it is not in the first alpha. Maybe a first implementation for the second alpha. We also got some information about the release model, and apparently Cosmic will get yearly feature drops. That doesn't mean that PopOS, which is going to be the first distro to really have Cosmic in it, will go to a yearly release cycle. Maybe they will keep one every 2 years. Maybe they'll move back to Ubuntu's release cycle. But Cosmic, as the desktop, will get big yearly feature drops. So don't expect a new version every 6 months like for GNOME or KDE. They're going for a more Windows-like approach in the end. They also shared a few informations about their design philosophy for Cosmic, which features they would add and which features they would not, which settings they would have, and basically it's a middle road between GNOME and KDE. you're not gonna be as limited in terms of customization as with GNOME, but a lot of settings that they already have are not exposed through the settings app, and they're expecting someone to create a cosmic tweaks to change some of those things. And also, they are not going to accept every feature and every toggle out there, just like KDE seems to do. Some toggles and some features, they are gonna try and fix the thing that made users want the toggle. For example, having a toggle to disable the touchpad when you have a mouse plugged in. They were saying, we're probably not gonna add a toggle for that, because if you need a toggle for that, it means that your palm rejection basically doesn't work properly, so we would prefer solving that instead. Which I think is a good design philosophy, but that's probably not what everyone was expecting from them. And since this event was almost 2 hours long, there are a lot of other things to discuss, but for that you will have to wait for the 8th of August, on which obviously I will make a video about this first alpha and discuss everything about Cosmic, whether you can already see it in the alpha or stuff that they told creators that they would do but haven't announced publicly. Now, it seems that Linux's rise in terms of market share is not going to stop. Our operating system of choice, at least I assume Linux is your operating system of choice if you're watching this, but if you use macOS or Windows, let me know why in the comments. Anyway, it seems like Linux has now reached 4.45% of the global desktop market share, according to StatCounter at the end of July. This is up from 4.05% at the end of June, so that's a pretty big progression. Obviously, it is just one measurement. It shouldn't be taken as an absolute value or number. It is a progression. In 1 year, Linux's market share progressed by more than 33%. And of course, this can always drop back down in the future, but the general trend is really positive here. As per gaming, Linux market share on Steam is staying pretty flat, sticking at 2.08% at the end of July, just like at the end of June. AMD CPUs and SteamOS are still absolutely dominating here. 70% of Steam Linux users are using an AMD device, and 41% are using a Steam Deck or Holo ISO, but likely a Steam Deck. Maybe the surge in usage for Linux in July comes from the Crowdstrike problem, and maybe it will go back down, but I would not expect that to be the case. And as per the gaming market share, I would expect that to stay flat until Valve releases either a new version of the Steam Deck or an entirely new product category, like a home console, or just announcing a partnership with another manufacturer that would use SteamOS, because unless that happens, the Steam Deck is going to continue to sell well, but it's not going to overwhelmingly change the gaming landscape. People are still going to game on Windows mostly. Now, a recent study and report shows that most computers are currently pretty vulnerable. Apparently, 40% of environments are currently vulnerable to complete takeover through privilege escalation attacks. Picos Security simulated a lot of these attacks, 136 million in fact, and out of these, only 56% were logged by the system firewalls, meaning that about half were not even detected. And just 12% of attacks triggered an alert, meaning most attacks were just never reported to anyone. And interestingly, Linux fared better than other options in terms of keeping out these attacks. Linux blocked 65% of the attacks that targeted it, where Windows managed to repel 62%, pretty close, and macOS only stopped 23%. Now, before you go roasting Apple in the comments, just know this. Picos Security said that macOS is less vulnerable as its default state, but that most companies just do not invest much time or resources to harden macOS or to secure it, and as such it ends up being much more vulnerable than other systems. And that's pretty interesting, but I guess it makes sense. On the desktop side of things, for your workstation fleet, you will probably just ship Windows computers, and you're gonna spend a lot of time hardening these and securing these, so like the basic office worker doesn't get scammed or succumb to a phishing attack that manages to take over their computer. On the server side, you've got all your very important infrastructure, and you're gonna use Linux, and you're gonna spend a lot of time securing that as well. And then you're gonna sprinkle some Macs in here, and chances are your IT people don't even want those in the park, or in the fleet, they don't know how to interact with them, and so they're gonna leave them as is for the marketing team or for your graphics designer, and no one is ever going to secure those. Now this week we also have a bunch of distributions being released. We saw Vanilla OS 2, which is one of these recent immutable and atomic distributions, but this one also adds support for Android apps. It has really good graphical tooling to handle installing packages into various distro containers without necessarily needing the command line. They also have some optional tools to sideline APKs and deb packages on top of the read-only base, everything being done graphically. They also have some more advanced tools to let you build your own images of Vanilla OS, sort of like the declarative syntax that NixOS uses to replicate systems. They also have automation systems in it. It is a pretty cool concept. And since a lot of you voted on the YouTube community page to see a video on that, or you just told me that you had no idea what Vanilla OS was, I have a video in the making. It will release either on Monday or on Tuesday next week. I tried to make it this week, but Nvidia driver problems, so nah, next week. And finally, we also got the release of Linux Mint Debian Edition version 6. It is the exact replica of the regular version of Linux Mint that is Ubuntu based, except it uses the latest Debian stable as its base, and it does replace a few packages with more recent versions, for example Firefox or Thunderbird. And yes, I know a bunch of you probably want Mint to switch to LMD as its main version instead of the Ubuntu based one, and honestly, they're very likely to do it when removing the Ubuntu stuff from Ubuntu becomes harder than adding the few Ubuntu things they want to Debian. But it doesn't look like it's for now, yet. And we also have yet more CrowdStrike fallout. First, Delta Airlines. They're hiring a law firm to seek damages against CrowdStrike and Microsoft because they've been hit very hard by this recent outage. They estimate they lost from $350 to $500 million with 7,000 cancelled flights and 176,000 refund requests. Which is probably why they're suing CrowdStrike and Microsoft, because if they didn't, the shareholders would probably sue them instead. It's just fake money, it's just fake valuation, it shouldn't mean anything, but in our world it does, so they kinda have to sue, and honestly, they probably should. And I am not a judge and not a lawyer, so I do not know where this thing could go, but my opinion is that it's probably going to be settled out of the courts with an agreement between CrowdStrike, Microsoft, and Delta Airlines, and no one will ever know what will happen after that. And CrowdStrike is also being sued by its own shareholders. They proposed a class action in Texas alleging that CrowdStrike made false and misleading assurances about its technology. This resulted in a 32% drop in share price for CrowdStrike over 12 days for a total $25 billion loss. Again, fake loss in fake money because it's just virtual valuation that doesn't mean anything except companies use it to hire or fire people, so in the end it does matter when it really shouldn't. Now, to prop up that lawsuit, shareholders apparently referred to a statement made in March by the company's CEO saying that their software was validated, tested, and certified. Of course, CrowdStrike says that there is no merit to that lawsuit, which, I don't know, but they did ship an insufficiently tested update to their customers, and they can't expect people to not take offense to that. And I'm not gonna lie, I do not really like the stock market as a concept in general, and someone gambling with their money and then suing the gambling den that they put their money in feels really disingenuous to me. Like, what a sore loser you have to be to do this, but I guess I don't know anything about this. What I do know about is our sponsor, Tuxedo Computers. If you follow this channel, if you've been following this channel for more than 2 days, there's no chance you don't know who Tuxedo Computers are. They're based in Germany, but they ship their computers to most countries in the world, and these computers are any form factor, any components, very customizable, and they run Linux out of the box, which is obviously better than buying something that comes with Windows out of the box because, well, you know, the components actually support Linux and you don't have to do any trial and error to get something to half work right. With Tuxedo, it works no matter the distro because they actually submit patches upstream to fix the various problems that they encounter, and they offer these patches in various repos for various distros. I only use Tuxedo Computers these days for editing all my videos, for running this channel, for all my invoicing, running my company, teaching, and also for gaming. So yeah, if you need a new computer, you want to run Linux on it, and you want to support a company that actively supports Linux, click the link in the description below and get yourself something from Tuxedo. So, thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. All the buttons underneath this video, they all work. They're gonna make the video pop up more in the algorithm, so please click them. And if you really want to support the channel, there are also links in the description, but I talked about that at the beginning of the video, so we're all good. Thanks for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one next week. Bye!